My presentation is about China's land grabbing in Africa for biofuel. So this is a brief outline of my presentation. I'll give you a brief introduction about some background information, and then some information about China's biofuel demand and supply, and also some discussion about China's land grabbing. Is it neocolonialism or development aid? And then some information about environmental and social impacts for host countries, and some discussion about global scale biofuel sustainability. So first, what is land grabbing? So this is a definition that's the most popular one. Is land grabbing refers to the large-scale acquisition, either lease, concession, or outright purchase of land by corporations or states in another country, and on a long-term basis for the production of basic food or biofuels that will be then exported. So it is becoming a trend globally for northern countries, but now it's also extending to some China and even India. Also, some southern countries are also starting doing that. Is they will lease up land in another country to use their land and water resources to grow commodities. So, and China has just started joining this trend not long ago. So why China would want to do this? So reasons include energy security. China, I will have some discussion about China's energy demand and supply later on. So you'll see that China really needs lots of energy to support its economic development. And also food security. China's land is very limited and it has such a large population. So China is looking at overseas to grow food and energy. So, and also climate change mitigation, and also investment opportunities. A lot of, I was just in a conference during the summer in China about clean energy, and lots of companies attending this conference view this, going overseas to grow fuels as investment opportunities for them. So, and also, I think it's also part of China's global diplomatic strategy, especially when it comes to the relationship between China and the African countries. China wants to establish its international leadership politically. So, and African countries are China's top targets. So World Bank has a report saying that there are now about 48 million hectares covered by recent large-scale land acquisitions, and 70% of which are in Africa. So the main players are EU, like many European countries, and South Korea and India. As I said, China just joined this, but the scale that China is doing is very large. So so far in Africa, there has only been 2 cases of China's land grabbing. So one is in Congo and another one is in Zambia. So, but if you look at the size, it's very large, 3 million hectares and 2 million hectares. Oil palm and jejulfa are for biodiesel production. So, and you can see the Zambia one has been cut off actually due to Zambian opposition. So China, as I said, China demands lots of energy because of its economic development. So you can see that we are here right now, but so China is still below U.S., but pretty soon it is predicted that China will surpass U.S. and become the largest consumer of petroleum oil. And so, and in terms of biofuel, China, the 12th five-year strategic plan for renewable energy development is a strategic plan that Chinese government do every 5 years. So in the newest one, the most recent one is the 12th one. So in that strategic plan, China wants to produce 4 million tons of bioethanol and 1 million tons of biodiesel by 2015, and 10 million tons and 2 million tons separately, by 2020. And this is so in order to reach that goal, this is how much they need to produce to reach those goals. But according to some studies about the available marginal land in China, because that's how the Chinese government thinks that they will grow the biofuel crops in marginal lands, on marginal lands, so that it doesn't compete with food. So the studies about the available marginal land in China shows that they can barely, even if they use all the marginal land, then they can barely meet the goals that they have in the strategic plan. And that's didn't consider some factors like water resource constraints, the suitability of soil quality of the marginal land, and also the cost effectiveness of planting the bioethanol feedstock. And when these factors are all taken into account, even bringing half of these marginal lands into planting biofuel crops is a challenging task for China. So, due to this fact, it's not. This is some information about biodiesel. So when we talk about biofuel, there's bioethanol and biodiesel. So also in China, the production of biodiesel is also a problematic one, because the lack of sustainable and robust waste cooking oil is a major issue for China to overcome. And China is the largest importer of edible vegetable oil and soybean of the world. So China is already importing lots of edible oil for eating. So it is not very likely that China will devote more of its resources to biodiesel growing. China's land grabbing has some unique characteristics compared to other countries. So the first one is large scale, as we can see, it's like 3 million hectares and 2 million hectares. And the deep involvement of both Chinese and host countries' government. So reports have shown that the two cases are both state-owned companies, and they have obtained financial support from the government to go overseas. And also, this is very interesting that, actually the customs statistics do not show that China is shipping large quantities of commodities back home, which means majority of ease from land acquired overseas are left for host countries. So in that case, it's actually, quite debatable whether, China's activity should be called land grabbing or not, because, in the definition of land grabbing, they have to ship the feedstock back to the investing country. So I think that's very interesting. So there are debates about China's land grabbing is a neocolonialism or development aid. Chinese government claim this as a development aid because they provide technical and financial support to these African countries to help their rural development. That's what Chinese government is has been telling the rest of the world. Okay, but for host countries, they also see this as a foreign direct investment opportunity for them for rural development and agricultural development. But there are also criticisms on China saying that this is just another type of neocolonialism. So there are environmental concerns and social concerns associated with land grabbing. In terms of China, because the earliest product was started like in 2009, so it was pretty, we don't have much time now, so it is hard to see the environmental and social impacts like caused by China. But there have been lots of cases done by other countries, and these are the environmental concerns generally speaking for host countries. So as deforestation, so there are reports showing forest clearance for biofuel cultivation because usually it is the easier one to obtain for investing countries because there are probably not too much land rights complexity on these forestry land, and also associated with deforestation is probably biodiversity loss, and there's also concerns about water quality and quality degradation, and also soil degradation. There's also social concerns for host countries. The top concern is about food security because accompanied with land grabbing, there are three kinds of change that raise concerns about food security. That's land use change, crop change, and location change. Crop change means maybe some land they were used to be grown for food, but now it's been converted to grow biofuel. And location change means some food used to be grown for domestic consumption, but now is imported to other countries, or even for biofuel crops. Land rights and human rights violation. There's customary land rights widely exist in Africa. So, but those lands are not clearly identified. There's no legal document, so it's really complicated when a country comes to that country to obtain land because lots of land owners, they are small and they have the customary land rights. So it's really hard to identify their right. And displacement without sufficient compensation is also being reported largely. Means landowners, they are displaced, but they only paid very small amount of money. So in order to ensure sustainability of biofuel, so there are two ways to do this. The Roundtable for Sustainable Biofuel, or RSB, is a very popular one to ensure the biofuel production sustainability. So it has 12 principles, but it is intended to regulate domestic biofuel production. So the criticize to this is it is totally voluntary. So if a company doesn't want to follow this, then they don't really have any legal obligation. There's another way to regulate the land grabbing for biofuel. Is a code of conduct or self-regulate for land grabbing. So the World Bank has a framework called Principles for Responsible Agricultural Investment. So basically, World Bank see this land grabbing as just investment opportunities for another country. So what they are saying is just, yeah, you can do that, but just do it, just be responsible when you are doing that, which also received lots of criticisms because basically this is like encouraging countries and corporations to ban grad instead of limit them. So there are very complicated political dynamics in land grabbing. So including, you can see like globally and locally, and also in the national scale. So I would argue that in order to ensure sustainability in the biofuel land grabbing for biofuel, we need to consider these political dynamics, especially to guarantee the rights of small landowners because their rights are currently being ignored. Thank you.
Questions?
Is there a possibility that the crop yields that are grown in these countries are sold on other markets? You said it's not necessarily that great or land grabbing because the crops are going back to China, but would it be kind of exploitation still if they exported it to different markets and sold it?
I think that is possible, but in that case, China is not really responsible for that because that's the country's choice to do that. I think what I'm discussing is China's responsibility in doing this.